The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by Blooms in Omaha, featuring floral arrangements and gifts. And by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Andrea McMaster.
Hello everyone, we're so glad that you could join us this week on Consider This. I'm Andrea McMaster. In today's fast-paced society, stress has become a byproduct of our lifestyle. Many of us are constantly bombarded with commitments, endless activities, unreachable goals. Also, there's the emails, there's the cell phones, there's the technology that adds to this stress, and stress can lead to medical problems. Well, April is National Stress Awareness Month, and this week on Consider This, we hope to give you some ways that you can deal with stress from the young, from children in elementary school to the old and into the career in the workplace. And joining us, we have two guests today. Brent Kahn is the director of the Center for Stress Management at Clarkson College, and glad that you could be with us, Brent.
My pleasure.
Eager to hear about your program. And we have Rhonda Harvey Shaheen, who's a counselor from Florence Elementary School in the Omaha Public School District, and here to talk to us about how students and suggestions that you offer also to parents to deal with the daily stress. This really is a timely show too, because I think everyone across the nation has been dealing with stress or carrying additional stress because of the shootings at Virginia Tech and the college campus. Just going into work, listening to it on the radio, waking up to it on the TV, it seems that it's just constant. We're hearing about it, hearing about death, hearing about this tragedy. And I'm sure students are talking about it at elementary school. So I just first want to start off, I know that's not really the heart of some of the issues we want to talk about today, but how do you think people should initially deal with this?
I think one of the important things in dealing with this event is that people have a sense that there's a threat. Even though that this event is over, the body has a physiological response, and it continues to live through that response over a threat. And so it's important that if you are experiencing anxiety or fear over this event, that you just start some self-regulating techniques, like doing some deep breathing and slowing yourself down and not allowing yourself to get into that, because what happens is that we go into a cycle and it gets worse and worse as if we allow it to go unchecked. And so I think that's one of the most and easiest techniques you can use in this process. And the other important thing is being around loved ones and reinforcing love and the positive emotion, because that is very important in learning to turn off those switches of what happens to the body physiologically, especially at a time like this.
And maybe pay attention at how much information you're taking in. I think it gets to be a little too much when you hear story after story of a family member who lost a loved one. So
yeah, we go into overload then at that point, and the body is going to respond, everyone differently, but this is going to respond when it perceives that it is getting too much and it can't handle that. So yes.
Talk a little bit about what it's been like in elementary school. I'm sure some of the older students have to see the images on TV or hear it on the radio in the car with their parents or whatnot. What are they asking, and what are you sharing with them?
This week we've been doing some stress management, relaxation exercises in the classroom, deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. And it worked out really well that was on the agenda for this week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because especially in 5th and 6th grade, they're coming to school and they're saying, Mrs. Shaheen, did you hear about what happened in Virginia? And they're listening to what's going on in the news. And I'd just like to encourage parents to be really open to questions that their kids have, and to encourage their children to talk about their feelings, and also maybe to limit the amount of media that they watch, because they are stressed out because of that, and they're hearing things about the personality of the young man that did this horrible thing. And they're learning that he was bullied and that he felt like he was at the end of his rope because people had not been nice to him. And that's something else that we talk about in school as well, in guidance classes, how to deal with the situation if you are bullied by another person. And we try to help them be empowered and help them realize that they can choose what they believe about themselves, and they don't have to take what other people are saying to heart. So mainly I've been listening. I've been doing a lot of listening. I've been doing a lot of reassuring about the fact that our school is a safe place for them, and that it will always be a safe place. Their safety is our number one concern. And they also know that if they have any feelings that they want to talk about, they can speak with their teacher or write me a note, and they can come to talk with me at any time.
Yeah, that's so critical, that they're talking about their feelings
Exactly.
and not keeping it inside.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Brent, the Center for Stress Management at Clarkson College established last year about this time.
Right.
So talk about the purpose for the Center for Stress Management. Why was it established in the first place?
Part of it was a dream that I had in giving professionals and students some tools to deal with stress in their lives. And the reason that it was in Clarkson was because I had a healthcare background, and I saw what happened with healthcare professionals and experiencing levels of stress in their profession, and having early burnout and leaving the profession very early. And it sort of grew into a lot of different things, where we started doing work with OPS in the schools, because what we learned on this journey is that the body, regardless of whether you're a child, a professional, or a senior citizen, the stress, the physiological response is the same when we experience stress. And so we learned that the applications were very broad, and so we started with one vision, and it sort of broadened towards providing tools to the community, to the Omaha metro area as a whole. And so that's how we got started.
And working with businesses and professionals, as you mentioned,
Yes.
you have a specific tool that you point them to that a number of companies across the nation are really taking or using. Liz Claiborne, Shell.
Yes.
So a number have Boeing, numerous hospitals, academic settings, as well as federal and state agencies. So talk a little bit about this model so that folks could understand it.
The model that we use is actually the Institute of Heart Math out of Boulder Creek, California. And they took some of the latest research from basically where Herbert Benson and those pioneers in stress research, they were able to make some very important breakthroughs. And the science is very complicated, but they were able to develop tools and techniques that all of us can use within 3 to 5 minutes, and to help relieve some of these signs and symptoms of stress. And specifically what they were able to do was that they were able to show that stress has very high relationship to emotion. So the real long-term solution to managing stress in our systems is about utilizing positive emotion. And what they did was they took that positive emotion and they developed tools and techniques where you can use with basic diaphragmatic breathing. And so the old adage where we use take a deep breath, it's a self-regulation technique that we have known for many years. What they did was that they were able to add on in this very simple tool of using positive emotion. And in that, they were able to see scientifically through heart rate variability the effect on the body when you are able to do that. And so that was what the science was, and in terms of what the Institute of Heart Math. The applications they have were very broad, and as I mentioned, they have programs for schools, which we are currently a part of in a grant with 3 OPS schools and a parochial school in North Omaha. But they also have programs for hospitals, as you mentioned, corporations, and for private citizens, and you can learn these very easily. But it's again, I stress it's about positive emotion, accessing positive emotion in your life, and thing to understand is that the body does not know the difference between real or imagined events. So that when we sit down and we stew, for example, or we think about these threats, we trigger a physiological response in our system, and over time that's what affects us. But the solution is the same, is as simple as that. If we sit down and we spend time thinking about all the wonderful positive things in our lives, it also triggers a physiological response in us. And that is part of the solution in it. And the Institute of HeartMath did that very brilliantly in giving people those very simple tools. And that's what I do. I work with people to use those tools in their lives.
And I imagine companies are seeing results.
They do. As some of those ones that you mentioned, including NASA, the U.S. military, actually have measured results over time using assessments showing where if people are able to reduce their levels of stress, they are able to perform better. Job stress is one of the highest deterrents currently in our society to productivity, and so if we learn to be able to deal with stress, we find that the people professionally are a lot more productive at their jobs, and they're also happier. Mm-hmm. And so that is part of why a lot of corporations are investing in models. But the tool of HeartMath is just one piece. You know, stress management is a very broad piece. You know, proper diet and exercise and all those things are all part of the solution of stress management. This particular tool gives people something that they could do in 5 to 10 minutes, which is why it makes it so effective.
Mm-hmm. A balance in your life
Exactly.
is so key.
Exactly.
You can't work 24/7, though in today's society, so many of us feel like we need to because of technology, as I mentioned before, with the cell phones, where we can be online, we can have emails, you know, there's technology is keeping us instantaneous all the time.
Another very interesting statistic that came out of the American Institute of Stress is 75 to 90% of primary care physician visits today are stress-related disorders. We have a very high incidence in our society of stress-related disorders, and what we see as stress-related disorders can be anything from migraines to irritable bowel, hypertension, diabetes, all stress-related disorders. And so we have it's not just professionals, but across our society. Interestingly, whenever I meet a physician in Omaha and I tell them that, they agree that's what they see. So it's, you know, we see it in many ways, and it does cost us a lot. And so that's one of the reasons that healthcare systems are also, and insurance companies are also interested in trying to find ways to deal with stress.
Sure. Okay, very interesting. Well, we'll ask you some more questions here shortly, but Rhonda, I wanted you to talk a little bit about what some of the types of stress that children deal with. I mean, I know that it goes everything from coping with family conflicts to divorce to maybe constant change in school, neighborhoods, childcare arrangements. We mentioned peer pressure already with bullies, and sometimes even violence in their homes.
Right.
So you're dealing with probably a huge spectrum of students. What are some of the techniques that you give them in dealing with stress? And I'm sure it's different from talking to those kindergartners to talking to those who are 13 years old.
Well, I do go into every classroom once a week, kindergarten through 6th grade. So beginning even in kindergarten, we talk about how important it is to share your feelings and find an adult that they can talk to that they trust to share those feelings with. And then in kindergarten, every week we talk about a different feeling, and we talk about ways that they can cope when they're having those kinds of feelings. And you know, that ranges in kindergarten to singing a happy song, holding your pet and hugging your pet, talking with your parent, hugging someone, whatever it takes to help them feel better, and we brainstorm. And for every child it's something different, but when they hear other people's ideas, sometimes it helps them come up with some that they'd like to try. And as the kids get older, of course, the techniques change. With the little kids, we use puppets a lot and do role playing with puppets. And we talk to the children about using positive self-talk, trying to give themselves a little pep talk instead of saying poor me when bad things are happening, because we do have a lot of kids that are grieving in lots of different ways, and that produces stress in the family. I think right now we see a lot of economic kinds of stress related things, and if parents are upset or worried at home, then it tends to kind of carry over to the children. So we try to talk about what are some things you can do if you're worried at home. And as they get older, then we go more into the teaching relaxation techniques. And even with the little kids, we do deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and we count. And then we do the progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense up your toes first into a ball, and then you work all the way up your body to the top of your head, and tense everything and hold it for 5 seconds, and then release that so that you're like a rag doll. We try lots of different techniques with the kids, because what is going to work for one may not work for another. We talk about how to problem solve from an early age to help them make informed decisions where they're actually stopping and thinking before they choose their reaction to how they're feeling. We talk about how to solve conflicts with friends and siblings, because sometimes that can cause a lot of stress, especially as they get older. And these types of skills, I think, help the children feel more confident and more resilient, so that they feel like they can handle problems that come their way.
And again, this isn't an academic part of school, but so critical, because it's going to improve their schoolwork, just like we talked about improving in the workplace.
Exactly, and research shows that if children are able to problem solve and solve their conflicts and give themselves positive affirmation, and if they have at least one adult to support them and to be there for them no matter what, their chances of being successful in life are much better, and their chances of being a happy, successful, well-rounded person are much better.
I'm curious to know why some children have such, or adults too, really adults too, deal with stress so differently. It could be the same child, or two children in that same family, siblings, but just one just reacts, even at an early age, a toddler just reacts so differently to circumstances. One might just be so fearful of loud noises, and the other could just be, oh, that doesn't bother me. You know, what is it about us that makes us so different in how we react to stress?
I can't say about the infants, but in terms of stress in general, stress is life has many events, and the point that you made, which was really important, is that we all have different responses to different events in life. So two children may have the same life event and respond very differently, and that, what you're saying, is very key. Stress, what we're discovering is that it's an emotional response to an event, and so we have vested interest in that particular event, and no two people have the same amount of vested emotional interest in a particular event. So, for example, two children, same family, same event, and one will get very upset and one it would not, and vice versa on a different event. So it's not, the point is that it's not the event itself that causes the stress, it's our emotional attachment to the outcome of that event. And so that's why we see events, people triggering for different reasons, for different events.
Any ideas on that at all, Rhonda?
Well, it's definitely a common thing in a family. For example, one child comes through the school system and they just seem to be so easygoing, relaxed about everything. They are good listeners in school. They seem to pick everything up right away academically. And then the next child comes through the school system, same family, same environment that they've been raised in, but their personality is so much different as far as their coping skills. And I think a lot of it is timing as well. It can have to do with behaviors in children. I mean, if they are tired or if they did not get a well-balanced meal maybe the night before or that morning, they may not react as well to a stressful event as a child that is well rested. Children that are getting sick or they just have been sick and their immune system is somewhat depleted, you will sometimes see them reacting to stressful events in a much more defiant or charismatic. They just experience stress differently when they're feeling different inside their bodies too. But I try to reassure parents because maybe they're going through a tough period right now where they need some extra TLC. Maybe it means an adult spending a little more time with them, teaching them some coping techniques. But many times you'll see them move on in the next phase of their life, maybe even the next grade level, they're fine. I tell parents that kids kind of go through a roller coaster at times or where they're down in the valleys for a little while where they're not coping as well, and then maybe the very next year they're doing just great, and then the parent and the school will notice them maybe slipping back down a year or two later where they need a little gentle nudging and some more TLC, and it just kind of goes like that with kids.
What are some of the signs that you look for that a child might be stressed out? Is it that they're crying a lot, or they have temper tantrums, I guess is toddler language, but some type of aggressive behavior or?
Any big change in how they normally act, what you're used to seeing, or a regression as far as their behavior, those are a big clue, a major clue that they're going through some stressful events, especially if the behavior change lasts for a while or if the regressive behavior lasts for a while. And sometimes parents can pinpoint, what it was that elicited that change or that regression in their child, but not always. Sometimes we have to delve a little bit to see where that's coming from. Sometimes a child will be withdrawn, and usually they're real outgoing. Sometimes a child is usually happy, and then all of a sudden they seem really depressed, really sad about everything. Or maybe usually they cope with friendship issues in a real positive way, and then all of a sudden they're losing their temper and not dealing as well with friendship conflicts. We're seeing right now, for example, our 6th graders are going to be moving on to 7th grade, and that means they'll be changing schools. They'll be mixed in with children from a lot of different schools. They have heard stories from other people about what middle school is like. They are stressed out. They are stressed out about things like friendship. Will they have friends in middle school? About things like combination locks on their lockers that they've never had to deal with before. They have 4 minutes to get between classes. Go to their lockers, pick up their books, work that lock, maybe use the restroom, and get to the class on time. They will have a lot of different teachers instead of just one.
So this is a huge time for parents to be listening.
Huge
to
time.
To their children.
And then you throw in hormones.
Yes.
And the changes that take place with that. So it is very important that everybody's listening to those kids.
Brent, what about bosses in the workplace, managers in the workplace? What are some signs that they should look at for their employees that might be stressed out? Maybe not a time to land a huge big project on their desk for them to do.
Absenteeism is a big one. Drop off in their productivity. It's easy to anger or appear irritable. If they seem to be down, experiencing those signs and symptoms. If you're seeing someone spending a lot of time in negative emotions, what we see in negative emotions, it goes beyond just having a bad day. You're seeing this over a period of time because what is happening is chronic stress. We have three different types of stress. We have acute stress, where we have that near car accident, the adrenaline response. You have stress around a big event. It could be a wedding. It could be what happened at Virginia Tech. It's a big event, but that'll pass. But chronic stress is when that urge to freeze, flee, or fight has to be suppressed and used over a period of time. And that's what shows up in the workplace or at home. And so as an employer, you want to be looking at your employees and make sure that this is not just an isolated, that they are seeing this, because what is happening is that chronic stress is starting to impact them. And they're going beyond their ability to meet challenge. Challenge has become too great and it's therefore affecting their performance. And those are the things that when challenge becomes too great, that's what affects your performance. And you can see that, over a period of time, as opposed to just having a bad day.
Okay. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Brent Kahn with the Center for Stress Management at Clarkson College, and Rhonda Shaheen with the Florence Elementary. Glad that you could be here as well. I want to go through some of the goals of stress-reducing strategies, just some real quick ones as we wrap up here. Eat a well-balanced diet, we mentioned that one. Exercise daily. Nurture meaningful relationships in your life. That can help a lot. Allow for uninterrupted downtime to allow yourself to regroup and distress. Incorporate some form of spirituality in your life, whether that means going to church, praying, helping others, or meditating. And there are some times that you might need to seek professional help as well, and that's when you have tried the solutions above and have made no progress. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Consider This. We're glad that you could join us.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by Blooms in Omaha, featuring floral arrangements and gifts. And by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.